I think we're working. Nisi?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're here. Okay, and we're here. Y'all let me know what's the sound like. Okay, I'm about to.
Yeah, testing. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Testing. You know, this is a new situation on the site. Hold on, let me turn my mic up. Let me make sure the mic is up. Okay. I'm gonna also be in the Discord. We're on Twitter. Okay, so tweet us. All right. At us. Okay. At BondyBlue, at Nisi Dixon. Okay. Yes. Okay, so I see you guys here. Okay. You can see us. Okay, we're going to give you guys a second to come into the room. All right. I'm super duper excited that this actually... Do you see the graphic and all of that, though, on the site?
Yes, I saw it.
Okay.
Yes.
Girl.
But it's going to distract me, so I was like, let me put this down.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks really good.
Yay. I'm glad. Okay.
And congratulations on the site.
Thank you. And thank you for being the first person to come on my site. Thank you.
Oh, the first one?
You're the first one.
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you this. So last weekend I was at a wedding and these people were joking, like they were quizzing my fiance and they were like, if she did a podcast with anybody, who would it be? So he answered the question first and then I came back. So they're like, who would it be? I was like, I guess I would do one with him. And he said, that's a lie. I said, Bondy. And I was like, yeah. I said Bondy was my real answer. It really was going to be Bondy. So it's so funny that you asked me to do this. Now we get our little, on top of our weekly thing.
Yes.
I'm the first guest.
You are. And I'm so happy that, it's working out. I'm seeing, okay, so people are coming because I'm looking at it and they're telling me that they were having issues. Because y'all listen, we were having an issue. I realized I can't schedule the lives. I have to just come on here because there's some type of situation with the scheduling. So that's why there's an issue whenever I'm trying to do it that way. So we just had to take that out and try again. But we're here now and I have notes. And first of all, I just want to start off with what are your overall feelings after watching all 4 parts? Like, what are you feeling?
He did a really good job of starting out with his influence and who he was to the culture, who he was to white people. And they set it up not for someone who probably didn't know a lot about Bill Cosby, but they set it up for you to understand how he did the things he did. So ultimately, when it ended, it was so easy for you to believe all of the women and all of the things that they had went through. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a good documentary for somebody who was convinced he did it, for somebody who was convinced he didn't do it, because they just told the story exactly how it needed to be told for you to form your own opinion from there. Okay.
So I really like the way what is it? What his name is? Kamal, mm-hmm. I think. Yeah. I love the way Kamal laid it all out, because the truth of the matter is I think it was very hard for a lot of people to grasp. And it's still hard for a lot of people to grasp. They're still saying stuff like, Bill Cosby didn't do that and they lied and da-da-da-da. And it's just like, y'all, the man has been telling on himself for years. For years, y'all. And it's crazy. Before we get into it, though, you said the audio is kind of low. Okay. Yeah, somebody was saying there was an echo, and I'm doing this through Zoom. So the audio situation, I'm like, I
can't hear it, of course.
Okay. Let me do a little check right quick. Lyric. Because y'all know.
Because I was just about to text.
Listen. Right. Okay, some people, Hannah is hearing us. She says the way they explained how he was able to create a persona while raping women is incredible. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. Okay. So just for everybody to be clear, if you are not yet a full member of my site, you can't chat on the site. That's why we're telling everybody to go to Twitter. And if you are a member, we're working that out. So just chat in on Twitter or chat in the Discord if you can. All right. But we do want to hear what you guys have to say. So tweet us, add us on Twitter at BondyBlue, at Nisi Dixon. Okay, I'm going to have my Twitter open so that I can see what you guys, are saying to us in the moment. So tweet live while we're talking. Right, okay. I'm just trying to, get everybody a chance to get up in here. All right, so my Twitter is open. Okay, the website, it doesn't show me anything on. Okay, so yes. The chat, I feel like also is not easy if you're on the app. You have to be on the website for the chat, okay? Like I said, y'all, working kinks out. This is new, okay? This is new. This is me going live from my own site via Zoom in a whole, look, it's a lot. It's not as easy as StreamYard to YouTube, y'all. So just understand. Okay, listen, very, very by hand. Okay, so I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Can somebody give me a confirmation in the Discord that y'all can hear Nisi and I clearly? If is there a little bit of echo, that's fine. That's like the echo in the room. Because I believe her mic is bouncing off. Loving the website right now. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you have to be on a computer in order to be in the chat. And I'm just waiting on y'all to tell me if the sound is fine before we get into my notes. Because I made a lot of notes, okay? And I'm going to like go through them and then, we'll go back and forth. Y'all can hear, we can hear. Great. Okay, Cosby. Starts out 1963, just so we have an understanding of Bill Cosby. So the beginning of Bill Cosby's career was honestly a mystery to me as somebody that grew up in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. I had no idea of the I Spy version of Bill Cosby. And that version of Bill Cosby is the first version of Bill Cosby that America began to fall in love with. First of all, I Spy was a show that basically was, he was playing the valet or the putter of a famous golfer, but they were really like in espionage and all of that type of shit, like spies. And he was extremely intelligent. He was debonair. He was charming. He was like, he kind of gave a persona of a low-key ladies' man. Okay. Just
James Bond is.
Yes. Like, so just imagine that physically, but he still started out as a comedian, right? But he was always clean. The opposite of him was Dick Gregory. Y'all, crazy as hell. I have met Dick Gregory in my life, thank God. He was really nice. And it's so funny because him as a young man does not look like him as an old man at all. I be like, that's him? All right. That don't look right, but okay. But Dick Gregory told the truth. He was a truth sayer in comedy. So he would talk that shit. Hold up. Okay. He would talk, I saw there was a little issue on the site. Y'all keep me updated in the Discord. He would talk that shit. And Bill wanted to be like him, but Bill didn't realize being the anti-Dick Gregory would get him on television. And that's how he got I Spy, right? One of the first black people to be on a show in this way. He's winning Emmys, in awards off of doing I Spy. So understand like where he was at the beginning of his career. He also met Camille in 1963 before the I Spy situation, and they started having a family. So now he's the family man, and he's doing covers of Ebony magazine with him and his wife and the baby and all of that type of shit. So this whole crafting is beginning, right? And then there's the boys will be boys situation. But basically, Bill was a hoe. So he was cheating on Camille for their whole marriage, probably. I don't think he probably was ever really faithful to her, because as long as he was climbing in his career, there are women throughout the years, 60s on up to the 2000s, that said that he raped them. So Camille. The funny part about him and Camille, I did not realize this. Camille was the person that gave him the up that he needed, because Camille came from an influential family. And so she was college educated and her family was college educated, y'all. But Bill Cosby was seemingly a nigga off the streets of Philadelphia that told some jokes, married the rich girl, and got in with the rich people. Like, that's what it seems like.
And then also you could tell he was so mentally manipulative. That haven't you always heard, like, if you want to be successful to black women first of all, if you're a black man and you're a celebrity, you got to win over the black audience first. So if you want to be successful, you either need a black wife or you need to hide your white wife. And that's exactly what Bill Cosby did with Camille. I feel like she understood the assignment too.
She did. She absolutely understood the assignment. And the assignment was to stand there and look pretty and smile. You know, and that's what she did. Homegirl played her role, and we haven't heard anything from her. You know what's so funny? Like, that's the one thing. You have never heard anything from her about anything other than, yes, Bill, yes, smile and shake head. Like, people didn't even really know her that worked with him. Like, when they were, you know, certain parts of the documentary, you have Lisa's husband, and he was like, I never met the wife, never seen any of his family on set. Like, it was crazy. But
I might have walked past her once. That's what they were saying?
Yeah, like, maybe, I don't know. She was like a ghost. I was like, not a ghost. Like, I really would have liked to have known what their relationship was like. Honey, take the potatoes out of the oven. So sorry, you guys, my life. So then,
that was right on time.
Okay, let's get into this whole, there was a moment where Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs had this really weird exchange because Barbara Walters went into the, the Bunny situation, because it was a whole bunch of, it wasn't just a mansion. Playboy had a whole bunch of different lounges and clubs all over the country back in the day. And it was basically high-end prostitutes for people with keys. Not for everybody. For the layman's, for the poor people, for the middle-class people, this sold you the dream of what it would be like to be rich and famous. And then the rich and famous people could be members of the Playboy Club, and then they can come in and take women out whenever they wanted to, basically. So understand that. So when Barbara Walters goes in undercover as a bunny, and the depiction is, oh, the bunnies aren't to be touched. They're just for show. This is actually a really classy situation. They bend their backs when they put their trays down. Yes. They were basically trying to make it seem as if the bunnies were, first of all, liberated as women, making really good money, making thousands of dollars a week back in the day when that was a lot of money to be made. When that lady said she was making 2 stacks a week at the place. Yes. I was saying, girl, what? In the 60s? That's a lot of money, y'all. So I understand the allure of it at the time because women were coming out of this, let's be moms and mothers and wives. Let's get our own shit. Let's get our own money. Let's have sexual liberation and fuck on dudes if we want to and go to the club. And, they really were trying to have this independence. And I feel like he saw that, used the civil rights era in bringing black people in and having black people perform in the clubs. And like, it's the same thing, this crafting of a persona. And I think Hugh Hefner did the exact same thing that Bill Cosby did. And it's funny because they were friends. Okay. So I really wonder what Barbara Walters probably saw in real life, because something tells me that whatever she may have experienced in real life that might have been negative, she wouldn't have been able to report anyway, because Hugh Hefner made it so that people did not speak badly on him in the press without issue. Like nobody spoke, y'all. So many things. You have to watch the Playboy situation, y'all, because me and Niecy have been watching that one too.
Yeah, I just started it. And I was ready to start it because what I also want to ask you your thoughts on is the differences between the black woman who experienced being a Playboy Bunny versus the white lady. Do you remember?
Yes.
The white lady said she felt like sexually degraded.
Yes.
And the black woman was like, that was the best time of my life.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I got to watch the Playboy.
Right.
The Playboy woman.
It was definitely a difference in their experiences. And you could tell because black people get excited whenever white people stand up for us. So when she has that story about another white man saying, I don't want that, that black girl to service my table. And, the man goes over there and says, get the fuck out. That made her feel like, oh my God, and I get it because this is the 60s and you got white people spitting on you in the fucking street. And here there's this powerful white man, that is starting this sexual revolution, and they're offering women good money and, it comes with all of these perks. Like I could totally understand the allure in the moment. And I feel like it's so unfair the way they make women out to seem like they're fucked up or they're wrong or played a part in their assault for trying to use these, you know, these places of access, these points of access to get to a better state of living. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's doing that. So why is it when women are taken advantage of in this system in this way, everybody looks to blame the woman? It is really the most insane thing when you think about it. Like, blame the victim.
And that's because culturally, women have always been trained to believe, you know, you can't dress this way around a man, or boys will be, it starts whenever men are kids. Boys will be boys. They always teach women how to try to prevent themselves from being the victim rather than teaching men how to keep wait for consent. They don't teach people that.
Right.
So it, like, even though it seems like common sense, like culturally everybody has been brought up that way. Black people, white people,
everybody. Right.
Everybody has been brought up that way. So to hear people finally label it as rape culture, because that's what it is. What were you wearing? What were you trying to get?
Right.
I'm glad that people are labeling it, but I need people
to actually comprehend it. And I feel like they do a good job. That's okay. They do a good job on this docuseries explaining even the bits, even explaining like this is what rape culture is.
And that's important because it has to be framed in that for you to understand why this is happening, because people are always, well, why you coming out now? And he did, or this is, you know, like there are all these excuses for why women should stay quiet. And you just need to understand that that's a part of rape culture for you to even feel that way. Like you don't do this to anybody else when they come out and say that someone wronged them. You don't ask people who say somebody stole something from them to prove that somebody stole something from them. Like, y'all don't put other people with any other crime through all of this the way y'all put women through, you know, believing them when somebody says they've been assaulted, especially when it's somebody that people love, that people grow to trust, the way they did with Bill Cosby, the way they did with Hugh Hefner, which is so crazy because it's like, how do you grow to trust people you don't even know? That's the crazy part.
Even more, and sorry if I'm getting ahead, but even more so, I feel like these character types, they're so manipulative and charming that they become authors of confusion. And you have to think about, like we just explained, the time frame that they were in. Bill did this with both Black people and white people. Hugh Hefner did it. And then I started thinking about OJ in the 80s. He did that as well. He was able to be the author of confusion because you had Black people looking at you like you Black. Meanwhile, you looking at yourself like, I'm not Black, I'm OJ. Right. Or I'm not Black, I'm Bill Cosby.
Right. And you know he felt like that. You know he felt like that. So I put in my notes, Black lady says it was great. They kicked out racists. White lady says we were given amphetamines to control our weight. Like,
yeah.
The white lady was like, I always felt like I was being used. I always felt like I was being, you know, exploited. And then talking about the way they talked about their bodies. I really want people to start noticing that it is problematic for people to speak on somebody's body consistently. Or at all, really. Like, something's wrong with that. Even when y'all do that to kids, speaking on kids' body, oh, you getting fat. Like, that's weird. Stop doing that shit. Okay? Like, I understand it from a health standpoint of wanting to make sure your kids don't get overweight and all of that. But I noticed a lot that when I was growing up, nobody really commented on my body the way old men would. And in the weirdest way. Like, I just, you know, in my experience.
It was women for me. But that's because... Yeah, but that's because of the standards that, you know, things that have been done to other women.
Yeah.
Like, people feel as though you can't, like, they think they're helping you out. Right. Like, girl, you're going to be big as a house if you do this, or you going to do that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I just mean in a way, that's one way, but like that specific, your thighs, watch this, like the specific of the body partness of it. I find problem.
Spanish fly.
Yes.
Spanish fly is talked about for the first time in his probably one of the Grammy Award winning comedy records that he put out, which is It's True, in 1969, y'all. It's so funny because at the same time that he was putting that out, he was putting out like content for children. There was a lot of content for children, late 60s, 70s time, and you are like actively teaching people that Spanish Fly gets the girls to, you know, open up their legs.
Right. This is around the same time as his fatherhood book. So he's already framed himself to, he's no longer like the young, fine bachelor.
Right.
He's now, you know, framed himself to be America's dad.
Yes.
And you joking about Spanish Fly. Even down to the damn Cosby show when he was joking about the barbecue.
Sauce? Girl.
That part, my jaw dropped. And I couldn't help but laugh because it was insane to me. And, you know, the definition of insane, when you do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, he did the same thing over and over and over again for over 2 decades. And or, you know, in today's age, people are still trying to find a way out. Well, yeah, 40, right? 4 decades.
I'm like, no, it's 60. You're talking about 60s, and then there's
2004. So if you're thinking about 63 to 2004.
Yeah, just under 6 decades in. Or just about, well, from then to now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was playing in our faces continuously. But the thing was, is since he had so much charm about him, he was able to joke about it in a way that Spanish Fly was almost like one of them fucking gas station people. You know, he made it seem real like, you know, just give her a glass of wine and she'll loosen up. He's talking about drugging women.
Right. And I love the way they had that doctor on there talking about Spanish Fly and what it does to your body. Like, it only makes you feel like that because, like, when you urinate or something,
it's a burning sensation.
Yeah, burning sensation. But
he talked about Spanish Fly and using Spanish Fly and saying, you know, all of that. But y'all, Bill Cosby went and got a prescription for Quaaludes. Like, this is what he was really using. And there's a difference between Spanish Fly and Quaaludes. But in a context, it's the same thing. And I love that they explained a knife in the hand of a murderer is just another tool of the murderer. You know what I'm saying? Versus, you know, because the knife in the hand of somebody that's chopping carrots is still a knife. So at the end of the day, it's what you do with it that matters. So when everybody, you know, is talking about, oh, the date rape drug, alcohol is a date rape drug. Anything that you can use in order to lower someone's inhibitions or their ability to control themselves in the moment, anything that you use to do that so you can then take advantage of them when they are not coherent is a date rape drug.
Right. Anything to, you know, mess up their ability to give consent.
Right. So I love that they brought that to the forefront because I feel like that's another thing, like this glazing over it. Like, you know, like it's not a big deal. This boys will be boys. We're on Larry King Live in the fucking 90s in a Cosby Show sweater laughing about drugging women. And then like knowing the exact dosage, you put a little bit of it. I was like, no.
You just need the head of a pen. And he explained it like in so much seriousness. Everybody around him was laughing. But whenever he said the head of a pen, he was dead ass serious.
Dead ass.
Oh my gosh. That's when I like couldn't help but laugh because I'm like, he's dead ass serious. Like there was no question around it. And it's funny because I have to say, almost probably 95% of the Black people that I talked to about this documentary before they seen it, they didn't believe. They believed that he probably did it to some women, but they still thought that maybe it was like, well, everybody used drugs in the 80s. Everybody did. Everybody kind of had to find a way to lessen it. Like, yeah, to explain it away. But I had to seriously tell everybody, like, no. Like, if you don't believe it, this man has told on himself multiple times. Go watch.
It's really, honestly, the fact that we were able to be fooled in this way. And then like for the way that people react, like it's insane the manipulation that has taken place in order for people to feel the way they feel and for us to not really have understood it. That's why I put this picture here, y'all. That's why I put this picture of all of the women who were like a part of telling their story about what happened to them, because I need y'all to actually see them and don't just look at them as a collection of light faces. Actually look at them, because there are a lot of black women in here. 30%.
You can't tell.
Okay, yeah, you can't tell. Okay, but 30% of these women are black. And honestly, I feel like it doesn't matter if they're black or not. Like, a rapist is a rapist. Like, I'm not going to feel like, oh, great, he's not raping any black women. Like, I'm not going to feel like that, man. And anybody that feels like that, something is wrong with you. Like, that shit is not cool.
But I feel like he felt like that. And that goes into the manipulation. He felt like that. And that's why I was saying earlier, like, you have to start with getting into the graces of black people as well. Like it's an insane amount of power whenever you have the graces of black people and white people. Like look at Terry Crews. He's then lost all the good graces of black people. And now that he's only honorable, like in white people's eyes, like he doesn't have that same flex as somebody like a Bill or OJ would have. So for him to selectively choose such an overwhelming amount of white women, knowing that whenever black people heard these stories, it was gonna be, girl, please, girl, I told you not to mess with that Becky. And I know that's what majority of people were thinking. He was selective.
Oh, that's what you get. Because yeah, of course. But y'all, one of the first stories that they told to us was one of the Playboy Bunny girls. And when this lady explained her story, for him to have taken advantage of her in that way at that time, I just felt was like cruel. And I almost felt like you knew what happened and you still proceeded to do this to this woman. So this lady was like a Playboy Bunny, but she had just got a recording contract and they had a party to celebrate that. And her son, biracial, mind you, so she was, her baby daddy was a black man. But she was raising her son, and the son was at the party. Son is like 6 years old. He was playing by the pool the day after the party. She goes out to get some liquor or something like that. She didn't leave the house, but she went to the door. And the man who was supposed to be watching her baby went into the kitchen, and then the boy ends up drowning, okay, and dying. So fast forward maybe 3-4 weeks later, her friend and her roommate and her go out to eat. Bill Cosby asked them out on a date. So they, sit there, they're eating. The lady's sad, right? So Bill Cosby slides a pill over to her and says, take this, it'll make you feel better.
Didn't he give her the pill because he got upset that she was the only one not laughing at his jokes?
Yep.
Yeah.
So she wasn't laughing at his corny ass jokes.
So that was her word. She said, I guess I wasn't laughing at his corny jokes. So he got upset and slid me the pill and said, take this. It'll make everybody feel better. Like, bitch, you bringing the crowd down. So she said, right. She said, I had done Quaaludes before. And this is how you know he was making them think that because they had done it before, it would be fine. But he was double dosing. So the lady says that she actually remembers at one point him putting another one in her mouth. They were in the restaurant, head bobbing down in the food. So eventually he gets them out of the restaurant into the car. They wanted to go home. They're feeling sick. And he's like, I'm going to take y'all to my office so I can show y'all my awards. They're out of it. They don't care. They want to go home. But okay, they go in there. And he tries to have sex with her roommate. But, they're both out of it. And she's like, no, like saying something, like trying to say something, but she can't really because she's so drugged up. He gets upset with her because she did that. So then he goes over to her and pushes her head onto his penis. And then after that, rapes her doggy style. Okay? So that happened to this lady right after losing her child. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there were women every year because that was 1964, I think. So there was 65, 66, 67, and then several in 69.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that was really disgusting because the first, like you said, that's the first woman who they start out with. Mm-hmm. And, up until that point, it was already enough that he was talking about the dosage amounts to drug people. I had believed that he done it. but I didn't know that we were going to hear specifically from the victims. She told her story in so much detail. I believe everything she said. But then whenever you think about the context behind it, I also understand why she didn't come forward.
Everybody. I understand why everybody, the women who still haven't come forward. Because even Kamal was like, I talked to a lot of, he said, I talked to a few women who just don't want to come forward, but they know, they admitted that it happened to them, but they don't want to deal with what these women have dealt with. Meaning the public eats these women up for saying that this man did something to them. I probably wouldn't say anything either. So they put us into context for the time period, right? So the civil rights movement happens. Bill Cosby's nowhere to be found within this, just so we're clear, okay? One of the most famous people at the time had nothing whatsoever to do with the civil rights movement, which is so funny because everybody that was somebody had something to do with it at the time. But he became our teacher, okay? So right around 68. And that's why I said it was so funny that this is a time that you're becoming like a teacher to us. In 1968, you're doing your Black History, Lost, Stolen, or Strayed little docu-series that he did. There was like a slew of movies that came out. And my personal favorites were the Sidney Poitier movies. Like Let's Do It Again is one of my favorite movies of all time, okay? The daddy from Good Times looked damn good in his suit in that movie. But yeah, so that was going on. So you're getting the Black people love with these cult classics in all of these movies, right? But the racism made it hard for Bill Cosby to get his footing after, the I Spy years, okay? So he did Picture Pages, which a lot of the early 80s kids know about. And then he did an album about bad drugs, y'all. Not an album about,
talking about that.
Girl, not an album about bad drugs. And then when you listen to it under the context of somebody that's drugging people, child, it's hilarious. Then Fat Albert, which really made Black people fall in love with him because there were no realistic Black cartoons out there like that, okay? Yeah. So then he started doing his comedy shows in Nevada. And he started assaulting women there. He assaulted women on the set of Picture Pages. He assaulted women on sets of movies. He assaulted women actually on the tour. And then the nigga went back to school to get his doctorate, which he never even graduated, y'all. So Bill Cosby dropped out of 10th grade, went back and got his GED when he went into the Navy or some shit. Got out after like a year or so, ended up going to Temple University around the time that he met Camille, I believe. Dropped out after only, I think, maybe 1 or 2 years in college. And so you didn't even get the bachelor's degree, but somehow we're going to school to get a doctorate. And it wasn't really believed that he did any of the work himself, okay? A lot of people did not believe that he did any of that work himself. They think that somebody else wrote the dissertation. Either way, the dissertation was on Fat Albert. So he wrote a dissertation on his own creation.
That he was going to ace.
Exactly. So how hard was that, okay? So people wonder if he got some help, and then he turns into Dr. William Cosby, EDD. And you saw that at the beginning of the Cosby Show. Every time that he was Dr. Bill Cosby. And a lot of other comedians was like, what kind of bullshit is this? Like, this nigga grew up in the slums of Philly like everybody else around here. Okay, what the fuck is he talking about? So that blew my mind that he never even finished high school.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know that. That especially whenever you say he was basically just like a regular dude off the streets of Philly, you would have thought that he was so highly educated because he carried himself. And that's the thing. That's the thing that makes him look even more like he's missing marbles, because he was able to have such an inflated sense of self, inflated sense of education, of classism, and everything based on him not having shit. It would be not having shit. It would be completely different if you actually done all the years in school, if you actually graduated high school the first time, but you have an inflated sense of self based off of you not having shit. That reeks of narcissism. Interesting to hear it laid out like this.
It is. Okay. So moving on from there, girl, because listen, the shit you really I had to make notes and lay it out for y'all. So
he would call them in, and there were so many women, y'all. He was actually, we'll get into it. Barbara Barrows, her story was crazy as hell to me. She said he was her guardian. Like, he was actually taking guardianship over some of these people, like, because if he done it to one person, he had to do it to another, where he took over guardianship of a person and then ends up assaulting them. We're gonna say assaulting, okay? But I honestly, I'm not worried. Even when I put it on YouTube, I'm not worried. We'll just be bleeping things out, maybe, okay? But anyway, so he starts doing that. A lot of the women gave the same story. He would do some type of improvisational exercise, and he gives them something to drink to help them loosen up, and he's Bill Cosby, so everybody says, okay, fine. And then the lady says she passed out, and I'm sorry I did not get her name, but she says she passes out, wakes up naked, and he's in a robe brushing his teeth, telling her that she needs to go. She got too drunk, right? So she thinks, I drank too much, I passed out, I embarrassed myself in front of Bill Cosby. She doesn't know what happened to her, and it didn't register that him being in a robe and her being naked should have meant something more, because it's Bill Cosby. So I believe him when he says that he took my dress off because I threw up on it and that he had to wash it. So that's why I didn't have any clothes on, okay? So she said she stopped talking. No, I believe this might have been Lisa. This might have been Lisa. Yeah, I think this was the Lisa. I can't pronounce her last name, but her name was Lisa Lott. And she was a model, I believe. Yeah, she was a model. Because he was also having agencies bringing girls to him. That's another thing I thought was fucking crazy, is that there were women who were brought to the Cosby Show set that were actually from reputable agencies that were bringing these model/actress girls to Bill Cosby's fucking dressing room, y'all. So they were like, bringing them in for him. So yes, definitely R. Kelly, more people involved out there vetting women to bring to you type of situation, okay? So like I said, he was, this was the Lisa girl. He drugged her that first time, and so after that she stopped talking to him for a while, but he called her and invited her out to introduce her to some people to help her. No, this wasn't Lisa, this wasn't the black girl, this was one of the white ladies, one of the older white ladies. But she says, because he asked her to come to the Dinah Shore show with him. And she went to the Dinah Shore show with him and ended up, I guess, waking up the next morning, sick and naked again. And she thought about what had happened the last time. And she was like, I was sick like this that time. I had never been that sick before in my life other than that time. So that's how she drew the correlation. And she says when she woke up, and she also felt like she had been penetrated. So she was pissed. So she gets up and she runs out, into, whatever room he was in at his home. And it's like, what the fuck did you do to me? And he's like, oh, you're ungrateful. You need to go. You need to leave because Camille is arriving soon. So I just assaulted you and drugged you, but you're ungrateful and you need to leave because Camille is arriving soon.
Right, because my wife is coming.
Ain't that, yeah, that's some crazy shit to me.
To do something like that to somebody, and then the mind game of turning it around on them.
Yeah, he was a serial assaulter. That's what's crazy to me. I really wish that they would, when he was in jail, I wish somebody spent some time with him for us to further investigate like his psyche. Yes. It's just very, he was a serial assaulter, like more than 60 women that we know of.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I would like to know more about. I also want to know about Camille. Like, did she think her husband was just cheating on her this whole time?
And that's another thing I'm wondering about. Did you let him drug you, or was that something that he acted out with those other women because he could not do that with you? Because there was a conversation about the fact that this is a thing. There are some of you men out there that like to have sex with women who are seemingly unconscious. And I like how that woman was saying that there's a way to do that you're not assaulting someone, basically, where you can pay women for them to, you say, okay, you can do this, this, and this to me while I'm asleep. We sign some paperwork, whatever. And I do it. And then I wake up and, you shouldn't have done anything other than what I told you can do. Like, I almost feel like he could have done that. He could have absolutely been paying prostitutes because, I mean, that's the word on the curb with Marvin Gaye, that he used to pay prostitutes for him to beat on and all of that type of stuff. But, you know, that's a different conversation for another time, girl. That little story they told me about Marvin Gaye hurt my feelings. But, you know, I'm not going to not believe.
You had me on Google searching the barges.
Oh, see, I knew about the barges, girl. Ever since that movie came out about them, I did like a little dive into their situation, and that shit had me like, whoa, like crazy as fuck, y'all. So there was another woman, and at the time, I love, was that Lisa Bloom? Who was the lawyer? I can't remember the lady. Yeah, that was Lisa Bloom.
I know her from anywhere.
Girl, listen. Lisa Bloom was like, judges used to tell juries to take a rape victim's testimony with a grain of salt. So you need to understand that this is very much a part, like, okay, so y'all know how we're always talking about the system of racism. When we're talking about this system of misogyny and this rape culture, that is a part of it as well. Like it working in the government, it working in courts, it working in police stations where a woman is not being believed in several branches of government. Okay? Yeah. So it is very much systematic for women not to be believed when people do things like this to them.
Men protecting men.
Basically, okay? Predators protecting predators. And I said that as soon as Bill Cosby decided to tweet about thank you, Boosie, somebody that you would have never put your, I can't speak English, people.
Oh, definitely. If he thought Wanda Sykes wasn't speaking English.
Oh, my God.
Child. But they told us about the tennis player who he was drugging and how he grabbed her and kissed her. And she wiggled away from him, but because she, like, that was the second time. He tried to kiss her the second time, but he had already assaulted her previously. But once again, she didn't remember. So because she doesn't remember, she was like, I don't want to remember it, but this is what happened to me. And so then comedy is going X-rated, right? So we're entering into like the mid 80s. Everything's blowing up. You got your Richard Pryors talking dirty and doing movies. And so then Bill Cosby decided to do his own Cosby movie special. It was himself, 1984, I think 1983, whichever one it was. Child, my daddy used to love that damn comedy show. I've seen that comedy show over and over again, okay? So that was huge for him, but that was the pitch for the Cosby Show. And one of the things they talked about was how he chose to make himself not only America's dad, but an OBGYN with his office in the basement.
In the basement, like a creep, in plain sight.
In plain
an OBGYN.
That's the crazy part to me. Like, you really was like a OBGYN, my dude. You could have been anything else. You could have made yourself an actual pediatrician. You know, the kiddies, but no, you want to be digging in women's vagina. Child, listen. So then they talked about the girl who played the police officer. The girl who played the police officer on the episode with Vanessa Williams, brown-skinned Vanessa Williams, not biracial Vanessa Williams. Or light-skinned Vanessa Williams, child, whichever one, I'm sorry. It's probably light-skinned. But anyway, he took the son-in-laws on the show. He took their dressing room and gave their dressing room to this girl who was coming on to play a cop with a few lines. And I'm going to tell you what I found amazing about it. The thing I found amazing about it was it reminded me of when R. Kelly would lock the girls in a room. And then he wouldn't come the first day, and then they put him in another room. And then another day, they put the girl in the room to wait for him. And then he'd show up then. And then he'd try him out and see what he can do and see how far it can go. And he may not do anything, he might, but he may not, because that's like the second time. Because there's going to be another time after this time. So you have to be careful about how you handle yourself this second time. So that's what Bill Cosby did to her. He actually had her waiting in his dressing room during her lunchtime, eating her food. And he didn't show up the first time. But the second time, they call her on set to go into his office. And she's like, I don't want to go. And they're like, listen, this happens all the time. Just go. This is what production is telling her on the fucking Cosby Show. So she goes, right? She goes, and he tries to come at her. He basically says, you know, you can have anything you want from me. And she's like, Mr. Cosby, I see you, you know, Jello pudding pops.
Right,
you
like my dad.
Yeah, you like my dad. And he was like, don't say that to me. That's what they all say to me. And then he did this mirror exercise with her, but from behind. So basically, like with his pelvis and shit on her back, she said it felt very sexual. She said it felt like it went on for so long when it was only a few minutes. Okay. And then he said, see, this is all I wanted to do. This is making love. This is all I wanted to do. And then he released her, and then she ran off, you know, and she was able to get out of there. But the fact that he actually gave up that dressing room and put Alvin and your boy in a broom closet just so he could try to prove something to this young girl is fucking insane to me.
That it wasn't like at that point in time, we already heard so much about his tactics, but it proved everybody knew what he was doing. But
I'm mad at
yes, that's what I was thinking too. Even those people knew, but part of me wonders if they were convinced that maybe he was just a serial cheater, because you know how it comes. Like he was the type of figure to, like, you know, everybody know Martin Luther King was an amazing man, but everybody knows he was also a serial cheater. They don't know what Bill Cosby was doing. Like Bill Cosby had a specific fetish to take advantage of women. Like he has a distinct hate for women, because you didn't have to do this, as we said before. And I think his character that's so charismatic and him being so friendly, because remember when this first happened, all his Cosby shows spoke out on his behalf.
Yeah, this did not happen. It's a lie.
Because they thought he was such an upstanding man. So for them, I think they knew that he took advantage of women, but I don't think they knew that he had the fetish to hurt women. Yeah. To drug them and hurt women. That's like sick.
It is. And it makes me wonder what the childhood was like. Because I feel like, have we heard anything about Bill Cosby's parents? His childhood, his upbringing? Like, I feel like we didn't hear anything about that. And that makes me want to do a little dive in and see, you know, what's the childhood like? Did you ever talk about your childhood for real? Outside of these anecdotes that everybody kind of goes through as they're, you know, coming of age. But we move on from there, because this is when shit starts to rev up even more. So if you thought he was doing the most in the 60s and the 70s, it was the 80s that really, in the Cosby Show, and him doing well and getting all these accolades and, you know, delving more into the education situation and a different world and philanthropy and millions of dollars to the schools and all of that. Like, this is the time that he's really like revving up with the assaulting. Okay. So one model, this one I'm talking about, Lisa Luttrell, he gave her a couple of drinks. She passed out, didn't remember what happened. He calls her again sometime later, like weeks or months later. She meets with him with her family this time. And after, she took someone with her anytime that he wanted to meet with her. And I thought that was so funny, because he actively chose to form relationships with her family. And he did the same thing to Lily Bernard. And the funny thing with Lily Bernard is that they actually had the scenes with Lily Bernard to like draw the correlation.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Of him tormenting her?
Yes.
He was mad.
He was mad. You could see it in the scene. My mind was blown by that. So let me explain. Okay. So with Lily Bernard, it was this episode where this woman is pregnant, and she's obviously one of those annoying mothers. She's at the appointment 3 hours early or some shit like that. And so Cosby is annoyed with her because she's this type of mom. You know, it's 8:30 and she's supposed to be there at 11:30 or some shit like that. And he's annoyed, and she's explaining that she wants, you know, make sure that the baby gets calcium and milk and all of this shit. So he had assaulted Lily Bernard before in that same acting exercise manner. And just like with Lisa, after that, she would never be alone with him or drink with him again after that, but she still went back and took the job, and he offered her the job kind of low-key to quiet her about what he had done to her, right? And I like that she explained, I took the job because I work for that shit, you know, like she had been on the show before. People would come on and do extra work, and that would be them trying to get on the show to actually have a part. So she had worked towards getting this part. And this was also something I feel like that women went through. feeling like that was par for the course, that would happen to them, but also not agreeing that should happen to them or that they wanted that to happen to them. But understanding after the fact that, well, I mean, he did what he did to me. I might as well get what I need to get out the situation. Like, you gotta know. Exactly. And then put it in the back of my mind and move on. Because it's so much harder to admit when somebody does something like that to you. Okay, so much harder to deal with that, especially when he's implanted himself not only in the minds of strangers, but now in the mind of your family. And that's what he did to Lily Bernard. So he's forcing Lily Bernard to have lunch with him and her boyfriend, who is there as protection for her in his office, which is weird as fuck. Then he's fucking with her on set. You're not doing the line right. Milk, you're not doing the line right. You got to do it over again. And he's screaming at her. And then he was like, well, you're not getting this line right. So we're going to rap, but you're going to come to my house after this is over. You're going to come to my house. And she was like, Mr. Cosby, you know what happened last time? I am not coming to your house. I told you I was not coming to your house. She said that shit on set in front of everybody. And everybody just kind of scattered away. Okay. And then at the end of taping, he was like, well, you're fired then, because this isn't about me trying to fuck your ass, Bernard, because that's what he would call her. This isn't about me trying to fuck your ass, Bernard, okay? Which is so weird, because it's like, so you're admitting that that's what you were trying to do beforehand, but you're not, that's what this isn't about right now. This isn't about that right now.
It was about that.
And that's also the component where I feel like people was kind of like, ain't none of my business, because they thought he was cheating. But my thing is, a lot of these women, even if they didn't come forward, I got the hiccups, even if they didn't come forward and tell everybody in an exposing manner, I feel like they eventually told somebody. Mm-hmm. Like, they eventually told one person. So even though a lot of these people thought he was just cheating, there's no way that nobody knew that he was harming women. Like, nobody.
They actually named one of his like assistants. I forgot what is it? I forgot what his name was. Yes, that man. He knew a lot about what was going on, and didn't say anything because of course he's trying to keep his job and all of that. Another thing I heard is that that wasn't a part of the documentary was how much he was cheating on Camille. And that she left at some point with the kids, and that just made it easier for him to do even more. So I believe at some point she wasn't with the shits, but I think she became so comfortable with her life. It was almost like, why am I going to give up my life because he's a cheater? I think she may have put it in her mind that he's not assaulting, he's just cheating, and she's not going to give up her $1 million man for these hoes who just want to fuck on him for opportunities. I bet you any money that lady has told herself that and decided to block out anything that would contradict that. But absolutely. Yeah. He said he would fire her, but he didn't. As the 80s went on, he got more accolades. He assaulted more women. It started escalating. And then in 86, Stacey Pinkerton, she actually went to the police, but knew no one would believe her. So she just, I guess withdrew her statement. There was a Helen Gumpel in 87 says that he kept pushing a drink on her and she had worked with him before. And she decided not to take the drink. So he didn't assault her, but he blackballed her for refusing. So ain't that some shit? So even if you were smart enough to, as y'all would say, even if you were smart enough to, because I don't believe that's what it is. It's not about smarts. But either way, if you had the gumption enough to say no to the drink, then he would have you blackballed. So then there was another one in 87. And it's the lady I was telling y'all about Barbara Bowman. He was her acting coach. Her parents and everything had entrusted her with him. And he was drugging her when they were doing the acting exercises. So she's coming over to do acting exercises, and every time he's fucking drugging her.
And wasn't she, this was from the time she was 17 to when she was 19. So she was underage.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of them that were underage. Actually, in the Playboy documentary, there was a clip that they showed from like 1965, I think, with Bill Cosby, or 64, where he might have been accused of raping a 15-year-old girl. It might be 74. Child, I can't remember what the year was because it was just a clip of it. But he was accused of raping a 15-year-old girl in the Playboy Mansion. But because of the, the protection of the Playboy Mansion, that was, swept under the rug. So the Cosby Show ended. We in the 90s. Shit is going haywire. Then his son is murdered. Then he came back to the set of Cosby, which was a show he was doing back in the day. I actually used to watch this show. And Dougie Doug was on that show. Dougie Doug was so disappointing throughout this entire documentary because it's so obvious that he's hoping that Bill Cosby will call him for another opportunity to play on something, and it's not going to happen, Dougie Doug. I don't care what your experience of him was. Like, even though I feel like it was brave of him to come and talk, but he definitely was given the standpoint of, I'm going to defend Bill Cosby because he was good to me. And I feel like you have to have some Hannibal Buress about you, motherfucker. Okay, we'll get to Hannibal in a minute. But you need to have some of that about you as a man, that you shouldn't just be okay with any old thing just to ass kiss a man because he's considered a legend. But he did a bit about burying his son on set with the people who were there. Like, he bring the crew to set. He walks out, Bill Cosby to applause and all of that shit from the crew, and then proceeds to do a comedy bit about burying his son. Which I won't begrudge him. Yeah, that shit threw me, because I was like, that kind of makes me feel like, I mean, he also said that he would give up his family for his career. He also said that, and that wasn't, kind of what he did in essence when you think about him letting his family move away from him when he was, cheating for the umpteenth time. So then Cosby starts to rip America a new asshole, Black America specifically. And he's talking about, the sagging of the pants and the filth, flam, and filth and all of this shit, and you shooting, saying it's okay to shoot a black kid because he stole a piece of pound cake. I said, nigga, you are not sitting up here equating killing black people to stealing a pound cake. And that's what we need for everybody to understand. Stealing does not mean you can kill somebody. We want y'all to stop thinking that somebody's life is worth taking because they stole property. It's an inanimate object. I don't give a fuck. It's still not as valuable as a life. I hate that y'all.
When he started getting like this and started making more statements and becoming the old angry grandpa, I couldn't help but think about Samuel L. Jackson in that movie. Was that 12 Years a Slave? Django.
Yeah.
Django. That's who he became to me.
Yes.
Because he wanted to appease to white people even more. At that point, you had already made it, though. You didn't have to do that.
But this is what he was thinking, though. He's the old ornery black man that sees himself as superior and now wants to look down on people who he believes are not living up to the respectability politics that he had created for them. There is an air of elitism about the Black America the Cosby Show took place in. It ignored a lot of what black people were going through in real life. You know what I'm saying? So even though a lot of people were middle-class black people and could understand this life, it was more so aspirational for most black people. So I feel like he then started to shit on everybody when he was no longer in their homes every day.
I wonder if he went through more black self-hate after the murder of his son.
Probably. Wasn't his
because
about a white man?
I'm about to look it up now. His son was murdered he was murdered by a white man. You're right. Yeah.
He was.
Yeah, he was murdered by a white man.
He took that respectability politics thing because it was, giving speeches to the women at Spelman about black men putting their sperm everywhere. And I'm like, well, he wasn't lying. Look at, fucking Nick Cannon. There are some things he was saying that wasn't lies. So that's why it wasn't like that bad, because he's the old black man screaming about how y'all need to have some respect about yourselves. We've heard it all before.
And then he said his mistake was he thought he was only speaking to black people. That's the thing, because I feel like me and you having this conversation, you can say, well, look at Nick Cannon, but you're not going to tell me Bill Cosby was not aware of his audience at that time. You were well aware. It was your way of making yourself look like you were better than other black people.
Even though you had already done that. So I don't know why he felt the need to reinstate that. But either way, Mark Lamont Hill, I love Mark Lamont Hill talking about how he actually went up to Bill Cosby, because Mark Lamont Hill was not tenured yet, but he was a professor at Temple University, which is the school that Cosby, had went to and aligned himself with and gave money to all the time. And Mark Lamont Hill wrote a piece about how he didn't like the tirade that Bill Cosby had went on when he spoke to the women at Spelman graduation. And so he actually went to, which is so funny, a lecture that Bill Cosby was given on how the faculty at Temple needed to speak to their students. And I love, he said, mind you, he's never taught a class in his life. But Mark Lamont Hill goes to this, lecture and tells Bill Cosby, hey, I feel like we should be able to have dialogue about this, blah, 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 blah. Bill Cosby puts on his sunglasses, turns away from Mark Lamont Hill and says, did I fuck with you? And Mark Lamont Hill is like, no, you didn't fuck with me, Mr. Cosby. And he says, Mr. Hill. Mind you, Mr. Hill is a real doctor, has a real doctorate, but he's Dr. Cosby. And Mark Lamont Hill with a real doctorate is Mr. Hill, okay? So he's also letting you know you're down here, even though you really have the education that he doesn't have.
That part was comical.
And then he tells him, well, if I'm not fucking with you, then why are you fucking with me? Like, got real Philly with Mark Lamont Hill, and then called Mark Lamont Hill's dean and said he tried to talk to him, but Mark wouldn't listen. I said, ain't that some shit? Mm-hmm. That's crazy that he did. Like, he would go out of his way. Like, he did shit he did not have to do. He called people personally to threaten them when they were going to put a story out about him that was not favorable. He did not take to criticism publicly well at all.
So, and it aligned 1,000% with what we seen at the end, towards the end, whenever he was talking to the white boy and was like, if you're serious about your career, and his wife just,
yes, if you're serious.
It aligns. It all aligns.
Definitely does. It definitely does.
But they were still going to give him another deal. NBC was, even with all of the allegations online at the time, in 2014, they were still like green lighting a show for Cosby to come back and be on y'all TV, even after all of this. And Hannibal Buress did a comedy show, I think back in the early 2000s. It was like 2004, 2005 when Hannibal actually did this. Yeah. But the video resurfaced online around the time that this show was about to come out. And baby, everybody, and I remember this. I actually talked about this on my channel. This actually blew up. And this is basically the straw that broke the camel's back. And then all of these women started coming out and telling their stories. He also had assaulted the Constance lady, Andrea Constant, I think that's her name. He had assaulted her in like 2004 or something like that, or in early 2000, and that's when the story came out initially, and that's why Hannibal Buress was talking about it initially. And you fast forward 2015 and we're talking about this same thing again, and now there are more women than the first set coming out. And then they do this cover with the New Yorker with 25 women up there, and nobody black cared until they said Beverly Johnson. And I think that was the moment where everybody black was like, Beverly Johnson?
Yeah, because I remember when that happened, like in real time, once Beverly Johnson came out, that's when more people started talking about it. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh. But then you still had the people that tried to rationalize it by saying that she was in on it, on some conspiracy, remember?
Yes, she was in on it.
And I was just like, nah, we're not doing that. Like I was over it at that point. Because to me, I'm like, you got all of these women plus. And not only her, it was also the girl who was on SVU back in the day. She's actually right at the bottom, all the way at the bottom on the right-hand side of this photo of all of these women. But she used to be on Law and Order SVU before Ice-T took her spot on the show. But she said he did something to her as well, and I believed her. I believed her when she said it. But I'm going to tell y'all, and I did not believe Janice Dickinson. I'm going to just tell y'all the truth. When Janice Dickinson said it, because not only because she does drugs, but also because I felt like she the type of person that just likes to jump on a bandwagon when it comes to stuff like this. I read Janice's book. Janice was brutalized by her own daddy. So she's been through a lot. So a part of me almost took what she had been through and was like, I don't know if I should believe what she's saying, which is fucked up when you think about it, because if somebody has been through this and you know that, why would you not believe them when they say somebody did this to them? So even I had to check myself with that, because I didn't believe Janice, and I feel like you should have, because you know Janice has been assaulted several times. But I also felt like Janice was an asshole, so that was a part of the reason why I didn't know if I should believe her. Yeah, it was that. It was definitely that.
She was on drugs, and then you remember whenever she would often show her ass on America's Next Top Model. Yes. So everybody would just be like, Janice, like.
So we didn't know if we should believe her. But child, when Beverly Johnson said it, it was just like, okay, we're listening now as far as I was concerned. And then the deposition from 2005 came out from that trial with Andrea Constant. And he admitted it. He admitted to drugging Andrea, and he says, this is what he said exactly. I don't hear her say anything, and I don't feel her say anything, and so I continue. And I go into the area that is somewhere between permission and rejection. I am not stopped. I am not stopped.
Part had me shook the fuck up. When he said, I am not stopped, I didn't take it as like she didn't stop me. He meant like his body physically, nothing in him was going to stop him. And that's the way it sounded. I am not stopped. Like nothing was going to stop him in that moment. Not that she didn't stop him, that nothing was going to stop him. It just sounded very disgusting, very impulsive, animalistic.
My will be done type of shit. Yes.
My will be done. That's exactly what it was like.
Yes, it was crazy to me, like the way he explained what he did, and as if it wasn't fucked up. It was almost poetic the way he was explaining it. He wasn't speaking in layman's terms. He's speaking in a way that he's almost romanticized what he's done, because he doesn't think he's wrong, because he's a malignant narcissist. Okay, I think that's what they called it. So he doesn't think he's done anything wrong. Another thing that I thought was so problematic about it was when Kenan Thompson said that he told him he was going to need 2 dicks when Fat Albert came out. Mind you, this is a kid's movie. And you're telling this to Kenan, who looks up to you, you know, like Grandpa Cosby, and you sitting up here talking about he's gonna need 2 dicks. That's some weird shit to tell somebody. Like, why would you the persona you have? You don't look like the person that's supposed to be saying that to Kenan Thompson on the set of Fat Albert. Nigga, what are we talking about?
Very telling, because his mind went directly to sex. It wasn't like, hey, once you do this movie, I'm so famous, it's gonna make you famous. Your bag gonna get bigger. His mind went to, with these accomplishments, more sex. More women, more sex.
Yes.
Like, what?
And which makes sense with the way his life went. That's exactly what it was. So the one thing, actually there were a couple of good things that I wanted to mention about this. First of all, because of this, Lisa Lott Lublin, the model, went and got California to eliminate their statute of limitations, because her case could not be tried because there was a 4-year statute of limitations on assault cases. And so they went to the Supreme Court and fought for them to get that taken down. So in California right now, there is no statute of limitations, thank God. There shouldn't be. That shit stays with people for the rest of their life. Like, you shouldn't be able to get out, scot-free when you do something like that to somebody, because the remnants are still there. So why do you get to act like it didn't happen when it did? So that was the good thing that kind of came out of this. And then also another thing about Bill Cosby that was crazy, because they talked about all of the amazing things that he was doing for Black people like he changed the world. Like the Cosby Show was a cultural phenomenon. But outside of that, Bill Cosby on I Spy, he was the first Black man to say, stop painting my stunt double black, and I mean with black shoe polish. Stop painting my stunt doubles black and hire me a black stunt double. So there was so many things that he was actually doing that pushed us forward in the world. Because even his show and his persona that he created so it would make it easier for him to assault women, that also made it easier for Black people to get on television. That made it easier for studios to bet on shows about Black people. If you think about after the Cosby Show in A Different World, there was so many Black shows in that time period between the early 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah, well,
so many Black shows, and a lot of that would not have been possible if the Cosby Show did not come along and revive NBC as a fucking network.
Because what else came on there? I'm thinking about so many other shows. Living Single was on there, Fatherhood, Hanging with Mr. Cool, all that, Smart Guy, all these black shows came after. That's crazy.
Martin, Wayne's Brothers, like everything that's in the Fresh Prince, everything came after the Cosby Show. And really, you really didn't even see a lot of shows in that time period because a lot of the shows were like the 70s shows. You got the Jeffersons, you got Good Times. But a lot of those shows were coming to an end anyway when the Cosby Show set of shows started to come in. And if you think about it, there weren't a lot of Black shows around that time that were prominent. It wasn't until after. After that you saw all of that. So it's just crazy how somebody can be of such benefit to the world because we don't even know how all of the Black shows that came after affected all of us individually. You know what I'm saying? So like just to think about that effect on the world in such a positive way, but then in real life, you are a serial rapist with a compulsion problem.
What's interesting to me is that I very low-key believe he definitely felt like he owed something to the Black community. Mm-hmm. But in a way, I really need to understand this man's psyche because I feel as though he definitely doesn't think he did anything wrong.
Nope.
He doesn't. And that's the evil part, the disgusting part. He doesn't think he did anything wrong. He doesn't even view these women as human. They're disposable.
And I'm gonna tell you something, like I recognize that you found safety in doing it to white women because you knew that the Black community will protect you. And that's another thing he was smart about understanding. Because at the beginning of his career, it was all about appeasing white people and being a safe choice. But when you look at like the back end of his career, he very much understood to make it, he needed Black people to be in his corner. And I just think it's crazy how those are the people that still, defend him. It's a lot of Black people that still defend him, even after him telling y'all to pick y'all pants up in the flim flam, filth and all of that shit, But, I feel like this is a testament that people really need to stop making gods and idols out of celebrities. Appreciate people for what you know of them and let them go after that. But never get yourself in a space where you feel like you're going to ignore this many women saying somebody assaulted them, just because he had a good TV show that one time. Like when that lady said that.
Ignore him confessing multiple times. He's told us.
Ignore the confessions. He absolutely ignored the confessions because I feel like I had heard about the Spanish fly shit and just kind of put it in the back of my mind like, oh, well, like it's probably like that shit from the gas station. Just like you said. That was
right.
What my mind thought.
I was like, man, people like the party back in the day. And I had already heard about Hugh Hefner and the Quaaludes because I had read Holly's book back in the day when Holly's book came out in like the forgot when that was, like 2000 some odd 7, maybe, I don't know. But I read Holly's book and she was one of the playmates that was on the show back in the day, and I used to watch the Girls Next Door show, so I knew about them. And I remember her talking about how Hugh used to use the Quaaludes all the time. So when the shit came out with Bill, I was like, oh, that was some shit they did in that time. That was a drug they would take during that time. But now, to hear the way these women explained it, I feel like this is absolutely the same thing as the Surviving R. Kelly situation, where it really took sitting these women down and having them tell you their experience for you to really see the picture for what it is. And that's crazy.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't until I sat there and fully understood everything in all the makings of that documentary that I was like, wow, he's literally just like R. Kelly, if not worse. They're both they both need to rot under the fucking jail cell first and foremost. But he literally sits right there. He sits right there, but nobody is talking about him the way that they talked about R. Kelly. When the R. Kelly thing happened, you had Black people talking about it. You had white people talking about it. White people used to specifically come up to me and ask me about it because they wanted to know if I found it believable.
Right.
Now, this situation with Bill Cosby, white people don't feel an ode to R. Kelly like they do to Bill. Right. Because Bill was their
America's
guy.
Dad. He was
America's dad. So that's why it's not being talked about like in general.
Mm-hmm. Just like they treating these Don Cornelius allegations. And I said, that's so funny because that's true. Like I even had somebody in my comments, you know, that was like, you believe this? I'm like, yeah, it was in a documentary on A&E. Why wouldn't I believe it? Like I'm under the guise that I can believe everything they're telling me in this A&E documentary. This shit ain't on, you know, Lifetime. This is on A&E. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And another thing is that a lot of the shit that happened with the that it's really documented. Like, what are you talking about? The shit is documented. And I also feel like with Hugh Hefner, a lot of that shit was videotaped and people have seen it, but the public hasn't seen it.
Do they have the clips in the Playboy documentary?
Some, but not all. I don't think they have a lot of the ones, but they do have like certain pieces of footage from like hallways and shit. Like where you because one of the main people talking about it was the doctor, his doctor's daughter.
In the house, like her walking from one end of the hallway to the other end of the hallway. I was like, is that real? Because he actually had footage of all of this stuff taking place in that house, which is why he was able to blackmail people into staying quiet about things, because he would have recordings of them from times that they had come to the house and had parties. So y'all have to think about that as well in conjunction, because a lot of that overlap with Bill Cosby. Some of these girls are, you know, like we explained, were Playboy bunnies. Yeah. So there's an overlap, and y'all need to pay attention to the men who used to always be at the Playboy clubs, because those men were basically there to pay for sex with women, and some of them had proclivities like Don and like Bill that obviously needed the protection of this type of situation where you knew these women weren't going to be able to say anything. They weren't just your average woman. These are women who have been put into a system that they want to stay in. They're making thousands of dollars, and you know what I'm saying?
It's a system.
It's a system. So it's just crazy to look at it all. And I really feel like then you can look at people like R. Kelly and feel like you learned from them. I don't know how, but you learned from Bill Cosby. You learned from Hugh Hefner what to do, because a lot of the things that we heard about R. Kelly, it's almost exactly the same. Putting the girls in the rooms, making them wait on you, the way he, you know, come in and out. You know, R. Kelly didn't drug people, but R. Kelly was the Pied Piper. So he had the music part of this and the sexual part of this. And that's another thing. That's another reason why people were okay with believing R. Kelly did all of this, is because R. Kelly was already overtly sexual versus Bill Cosby that's giving y'all daddy, you know, vibes and all of that. So, you know, but it's the exact same energy ultimately.
And that's why I want to know more about their psyches.
Me
like
too.
Whenever people talk about, like, it's the reason why there's people who profile criminals, like they're copy paste. And like the woman in the documentary, when she said she sat in the courtroom, she wasn't starstruck at all that it was Bill Cosby, because his demeanor, his demeanor and everything fell into the same profile of every single rapist that she had ever seen before. So that's what I want to understand. Yes, he's disgusting. Yes, R. Kelly's disgusting. Yes, they were dead ass wrong. But what I want to understand a little bit more about is like just the psyche. Why is it that you all are formulated to treat women the same way, to conceal things the same way? How are you so calculated to know that you have to win over this part of society while hurting this part of society? Like, but yet you don't have shit. Yet you didn't graduate. You can't spell, you can't read or write. How is it that you are that calculated?
But you can't graduate high school or college, and R. Kelly can't read or, that well, but you can somehow figure out how to manipulate and fool the fucking world. It's insane.
Uh-huh.
It's insane. And I really want to know more about Bill's childhood, because I feel like that's where your key is, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody said people still believe Trey Songz. Trey Songz is another one that I believe following in them same footsteps.
Yes, that's what I need to see unfold. And it's not, I think we as a society, it's been very difficult, Black society specifically, to grow to a point to where we believe women first, because Black people have been taught to have a distrust for white people in general. But whenever you get to these types of Black men who have power, it's something that I really think people should take a second, pause, think about it. I mean, and not specifically Black men who have power, but in these types of situations, you have to think like they have more leeway to do things like that than your average Black man.
And your average Black man is assaulting at record-breaking numbers. And and I don't just mean Black men, I mean men, period, assault women at very high numbers. At the end of the documentary, they were asking, do you know a woman that's been assaulted? Everybody says yes. Everybody says yes. And so with that, you have to know that there are a lot of men that are doing this. So why is it so hard for y'all to believe when somebody says that a man is doing this to them? Why is it so hard for you to believe that? And another thing, this specifically bothers me. When we're having these conversations and y'all say, well, why are they not talking about the white men? Why are they not talking about the white men? And it's like, so what is that going to do for you? Is that going to make you feel like in this system of racism that now things are equal because we're holding rapists to equal footing? Does that make you feel better about this now that we're holding two, rapists to the same footing, even though one is white and one is Black? Like, how does that help you in this world? That rapists are the ones that are getting the fair shake, because it's still not going to be fair in so many other facets of our lives. It's still going to be racism. It's still not going to be equal. So why do you need for more white people to be talked about when we're discussing Black men doing this? Why? What does that do for you? How does that help us? How does that keep Bill Cosby and other men like him who are in our communities from harming us? How?
Right. It doesn't.
So yeah, with that, that's all I have to say. This was a great conversation, Nisi. Thank you so much for coming on and having this discussion. I feel like
the best way to have it, to have dialogue. Because when I seen it, I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna sit here and talk to myself about this man, and everything. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so we are gonna put this on YouTube. Nisi's gonna have some pieces on her channel. I'm probably gonna take this whole thing and put it on mine, or maybe cut it up, child. I don't know. But it will be on YouTube as well. But I'm gonna leave it up here for at least 24 hours on my website. So y'all have to come to my website to see it first, and then I'll put it on YouTube. So I hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. I hope y'all are subscribing to my website. Even if you are not a paid member, please subscribe to my website so that you can be on my mailing list so you can get notifications, okay? So I love you guys. Thank y'all so much for coming through, and we will see y'all later.